Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recaps. And here we are, part two of my 2022 box office recap. Part one, I went over all of the winners, the W's, talked about all the movies that succeeded. In this video, do the opposite of that. I'm talking about all the losers, the L's, the bombs, the fails, the flops, the disasters, any word you want to use, any negative word you want to use to describe how a lot of these movies did, because 2022, it had a lot of hits but it had a lot of misses, and we're all here, it's all about the misses. And like the last part, I'm not going to be going over every movie in detail, especially not here, because a lot of these bombs were so minor that it'd be a waste to talk about them. But I'm definitely going to go over in detail like the bigger bombs of 2022 because they deserve to be talked about. So let's get going. And wow, it didn't take us long to get to our first bomb, the first movie that came out in 2022, The 355. I'm pretty sure most of you forgot this movie existed. And frankly, I don't blame you. So The 355, from what I remember, it was like an action spy movie. All female cast here, our five leading ladies here. I know it was directed by Simon Kinberg, who made Dark Phoenix, so that was an automatic red flag. And apparently, Jessica Chastain, like who was also in Dark Phoenix, she convinced him to do this movie. Boy, that was a terrible decision because this movie did horrible. It only made like 14 million domestic, 18 million worldwide on a budget of like 75 million. Like, damn, that is bad. Now, why did it do so bad? Well, partially because, well, one, the only movie people were willing to watch was No Way Home and Sing 2, so really two movies. Everything else was an afterthought, just like a skip, and a hard skip. And two, just the movie just didn't look that interesting. It looked so generic and just it didn't feel theatrical in the slightest. That's going to be a theme for a lot of these movies. A lot of them just did not feel theatrical. They didn't feel like you need to pay to watch this on the big screen. This could have been on Netflix and no one would have said anything. And people would have, but because it was theatrical and it bombed, that's the only reason why some people even remember this movie. Most people just forgot about it completely. So, yeah, the 355 just had like a deadly combination of no buzz, lackluster marketing, bad reviews, and dealing with No Way Home. All of that resulted in its death. So, can't say it wasn't like undeserved. So yeah, that's the 355. Start out the year on a low note, a real low note. And then there's like Belle. I'm not really gonna talk about that. It's not really worth mentioning. Let's see, The King's Daughter, that bombed pretty bad, but no one really cared about it when it came out. Redeeming Love, same thing. Tiger Rising, same. I didn't even cover Tiger Rising, but yeah, none of them are really worth mentioning in detail. So just none of them did well. It was a bad weekend, and then I didn't even know this released. I thought there was just no releases the 28th. I took that weekend off. But yeah, that's the end of January. Okay, and The Wolf and the Lion, that was a nothing movie, so who cares? Moonfall. We gotta talk about Moonfall, because god damn. Okay. So Moonfall was Roland Emmerich's latest disaster flick. You know, this man is responsible for Independence Day, Day After Tomorrow, 2012, some of the biggest disaster movies of all time. This certainly wasn't one of them. And, you know, I didn't exactly have high expectations for this anyway, but I thought it would do a whole lot better than this. Like, it made like 19 million domestic. It only up with like less than 10. It had a brutally front loaded run too. Like, it fell off big time. It fell like 70% in week 2. And then it was game over. It was bye bye. after that. It only made like apparently 59 million. I'm not sure how accurate that is because I know Lionsgate, their worldwide totals like here on the numbers can be kind of funky, but it's probably not much higher than that. But it doesn't even matter because the movie was a huge disaster. But why did it do so bad? I guess people just kind of got tired of Roland Emmerich. I mean, after 2012, like he made White House Down, which was a flop. Then he did what was Independence Day Resurgence, that underperformed. And I think we've had so many like disaster-esque movies coming out that people just kind of got bored. They got real bored. They just got tired. And no one was willing to give this movie a chance. And the people who saw it really didn't like it. I haven't seen it. I don't. I have no plans on watching it. I heard this movie is dumb, like brain dead, like IQ zero, dumb. um, so I'm probably not gonna watch it. But yeah, ooh, the real ugly result here with Moonfall. And I feel like I remember Roland Emmerich, like he did what a lot of people do nowadays, like bitching about Marvel movies, like how they're ruining cinema. I'm like, bud, you're not exactly helping cinema either. You're making the trashy movies like this that now people just aren't interested in anymore. So yeah, yeah. So Moonfall, our second big L of 2022. Not gonna really talk about Death on the Nile, Blacklight, or Marry Me because Blacklight was a minor movie. Marry Me didn't do so bad to really talk about it. Same goes for Death on the Nile. It didn't do great, but it's getting a sequel this year, so that's something. That sequel is A Haunting in Venice, so because it's getting a sequel, I can't really call this a flop, but or at least a L. So yeah, I'm just gonna ignore it. It's more in the mid. It's more mid than anything else. Like it didn't do great, but it didn't do god awful either. And then the 18, The Curse, another minor movie, so I'm not talking about that. Same goes for Cyrano and Studio 666. We are just blazing through March and February and March. All these are just minor movies. They don't matter. Not Lost City. That actually did well. Infinite Storm didn't do well. Morbius. All right, our next one, our third L. Let's go. Ooh, Morbius. Where do I start with this? I mean, like, this was supposed to come out in 2020. Got delayed a whole bunch of times. Came out in 2022 on April Fool's Day of all days, which should really tell you something. Um, the movie was based on like a pretty obscure Marvel villain or obscure Spider-Man villain because this is Sony's like their plan. Like we're gonna make villain movies, Spider-Man villain movies, and which started with Venom and Venom 2, which both did pretty well. They made money. This didn't though, not at all. And yeah, like when it was coming out, just like the fact that I remember reviews didn't start coming out for this movie till like the day of its Thursday night previews, which is a humongous red flag. That is a sign of disaster. And I remember watching it. That was the most miserable experience I've had in a movie theater in a long time. It was, I think, the most miserable experience I've had since watching Rise of Skywalker. It was really bad. But its box office was even worse. Like the movie, like that negative word of mouth, once it spread like fast. It only opened with like 39 million, which for like a modern day superhero movie is pretty pathetic. But then it only got worse, way worse. Second weekend, it fell 74%. That is like for a major superhero movie, it's the worst drop ever for the whole genre. Not just for Sony superhero movies, the whole damn genre. This is rock bottom. And it didn't get any better after that. and then the movie became a big old punching bag online. You all remember all the Morbius memes, it's Morbin time memes. I was there for that. We were all there for that. That was a lot of fun for like a month. It was great. People making like the dumbest videos, like this stupid dumb fun videos. It was great. I missed those times where everybody just shat on Morbius and had like the most sarcastic comments ever, like giving it like a 700% Rotten Tomatoes, giving it like three more trillion dollars. It was great. But then Sony, it gets even better. Sony looked at these memes, these ironic memes, and thought to themselves, okay, this movie's popular online. Maybe we should re-release it to to take advantage of that popularity, not realizing that all the popularity was ironic because everyone hated this movie. And they re-released it in June and like 1,000 theaters, and it bombed again horrifically, only like 300,000, and then it was gone for good. That's the story of Morbius. That is just probably the funniest failure of the whole year, I would say. Because like Sony, they tried so hard. It's like to make this a thing. Like they literally they branded it's like a new Marvel Legend arrives. Like they were dead serious about this, and it just blew up in their face. And we're not gonna get a Morbius 2, which is a shame. It's a travesty, if you ask me. But yeah, this was the worst movie I saw all last year, by far and away the worst. And it definitely deserved its failure. And is there anything else I can say about it? Not really. Yeah, I think that's it with Morbius. Only like 162 million on a budget of like 75 million, which isn't great at all. That's not that's terrible for a modern day superhero movie. But this isn't the only time this year where a studio thought that a certain superhero would do super well. Like they put all their money into it, making it the most important thing ever, only for it to not work out. We're gonna talk about that other superhero movie later, but Morbius was the first and definitely the more infamous of the two. So yeah, that's Morpheus drinking a 40 in a death basket. That whole movie. Oh god. What's next? Ambulance. I guess I can talk about this for a little bit. Ambulance. This is Michael Bay's latest flick. It is his worst performing flick by far and away. It only made like $52 million on budget. I believe it was like 40 million last I checked, which is really bad. I guess it's because the reason why it failed is because um I don't have a clear answer. I guess it like the 355, it just didn't feel very theatrical. Like you literally could have put this movie on Netflix. Like it felt like a Netflix movie that would just happen to be theatrical. That's what it felt like. I mean, it's probably like on the same level as a movie like Extraction or something, or like a bunch of other Netflix action movies. It would have fit right in. And yeah, I mean, going up against Sonic 2 did this movie no favors. Um, and yeah, I heard it's good though, which kind of makes its failure a bit sad. But what can you do? So yeah, yeah, oof. Not much else to say. Well, I just remember what I wanted to say about Morbius. I felt so bamboozled watching Morbius because there were like there was like in the trailer there were scenes in the trailers that were never in the movie. Like that, there's a poster of Spider-Man, never happens. There was like a scene where Morbius, he goes like this like dude, and he's like the dude's like, "Who are you?" And then he's like, "I am Venom." Like, no, I'm Michael Morbius. Like, it's supposed to be like a funny thing, but in the movie they just cut out the last part, so he just says, "I am Venom," and then that's it. And don't even get me started on the post credit scene. That's the worst post credit scene ever that I can think of. Like it's a disaster. It's an absolute shit show. But yeah, that's enough about Morbius. All right, what's our next L? Father Stew. Like, not much really to say about that. I mean, it was a faith-based movie, and those are notoriously difficult to predict if they're going to be successful or not. This one wasn't successful. They tried re-releasing it. It went very bad, and that was it. So not much to say about Father Stew, but there's quite a bit to say about Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore. Let's discuss this. Okay, so, oh, where to start? So Fantastic Beasts is like the spin-off of Harry Potter. It's all set in the wizarding world, from by J.K. Rowling. And the first Fantastic Beast movie was well received, made a good amount of money. Then you have the sequel, Crimes of Grindelwald. That was not good, from what I've heard. I've never seen it. I have no plans on seeing it, and it did quite a bit worse than the first movie. Then you got this third movie, and then you all know what happened with his production. Johnny Depp, who was Grindelwald in a tiny bit in the first movie, and then really in the sequel, he was fired from the third movie due to his legal issues with Amber Heard. We all That was the big thing that happened last year. We were all there for that just court battle. Oh God, I remember, just it's all flooding back. But he got fired and he was replaced by Matt Mikkelsen. Which, like, no disrespect to Matt Mikkelsen, dude's great. He's awesome. But yeah, that I believe I that firing did this movie no favors. And then not to mention, J.K. Rowling and like her drama online with like a lot of people have been labeling her as a transphobic. I haven't looked into it all that much, but it's been going on for years, so that definitely didn't help the movie. And then last but not least, Ezra Miller. Y'all know the shenanigans they got into, the legal shenanigans they got into last year, and I think a little bit before that. Didn't help this movie either. And as a result, the movie underperformed big time. It compared to the other Fantastic Beasts movie, not even just Harry Potter in general. Actually, the Fantastic Beasts movie. Let's go with Fantastic Beasts. Okay, first one made 800 million. Second one made 648 million. This one made only 400 million. So you can see there's a clear dip with these movies. And it cost like 200 million, so I don't think they made their money back because of marketing costs and whatnot. And it made less than 100 million domestic, which is just pitiful. Pitiful, especially considering some of these Harry Potter movies made more in 3 days than, and actually in a few days, than Secrets of Dumbledore made total. That is embarrassing. There is no excuse for that. I mean, look at this. Like, Deathly Hallows Part 2, Part 1, Goblet of Fire. Um, I know Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood. Those were like Wednesday releases, but they still did way better than Secrets of Dumbledore. It was an undisputed low for the series financially. So, yeah, and I just feel like, I think this is due to like the three things I mentioned with Johnny Depp, Ezra Miller, and J.K. Rowling. Just general fatigue with the Fantastic Beasts movies is clear. No one really cared about them all that much. And I believe even if Johnny Depp stayed on, I still think this would have suffered. It would have had a dip, because I just feel like, because that second movie already, there was already a big dip, and I imagine it would have continued even with Johnny Depp. But yeah, Johnny Depp leaving, it did the movie no favors. And now the series is kind of in limbo. I seriously doubt they're gonna go through, like, there's supposed to be like two other movies or three. I don't remember. I don't think they're gonna exist anymore. But I have heard that they want to reboot Harry Potter, which I think is a bad idea because, like, you already have like the original Harry Potter. Is like, you're gonna reboot all 8 movies or like 7 movies, unless you want to make Deathly Hollows one movie this time. Do you want to do that? I don't think it's gonna be as successful as the first time. Like it's if I just it wouldn't work. I don't think it would work. I don't think they should go through that with that reboot. But yeah, Fantastic Beasts. Don't expect another Fantastic Beast movie anytime ever. I'd be shocked if they went forward with another one. But I don't. I think there's a 0% chance of it happening. And I haven't watched this movie. I don't care. I just don't care. I just do not care. And yeah. Yeah, so Fantastic Beasts 3, it underperformed quite badly. A big old L for Warner Brothers. And then we're moving on to next weekend. Northman. This is one of more those tragic failures because this movie like wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't like hated, it wasn't like memed on or laughed at or anything like that. From what I've heard, I haven't seen it. From what I've heard, it's very, very, very good. However, it's painfully obvious that this movie was never really going to succeed because it had a clear ceiling because the guy who made this, Robert Eggers, he's not exactly a big name. Like, sure, he made, where is it? Yes, he made The Witch, he made The Lighthouse, which were well received, but they were pretty small flicks, but they were inexpensive, so they can afford to not do big numbers. This was expensive. This was like $90 million last I checked. So yeah, it needed to do way better than this, and it just did not work out. It only made like 34 million domestic, 69 million worldwide. That is terrible. But apparently the movie was profitable when it got on like home media and like PVOD sales and all that. It did end up doing, breaking even apparently from what I heard. But yeah, this is a bit of a tragic but unsurprising failure because just yeah, it just it was too niche. It was a big budget niche movie, and those never turn out well at the box office. So yeah, yeah, but I do plan on watching this movie one of these days because I really want to see what it's about. So yeah, that's the Northman. And then another tragic failure, the unbearable weight of massive talent. I actually did watch this. I watched this in theaters. Okay, and I really enjoyed it. And but tragically, it didn't do well either. It cost like 30 million, only made like 29 million worldwide. That's uh, pretty weak, to say the least. And I think it's kind of the same reason. The reason why it failed is the same reason as the Northman. This movie was too niche for its own good. It just was. It like this was only going to appeal to people like who are in like the internet crowd because the internet loves Nicolas Cage. They love his bad movies. They love his overacting. They love his ridiculous performances. Love him. And this was really only going to appeal to those people, and that's it. Everyone outside that bubble did not care, and it's this box office is proof positive of that. But I imagine this found a bigger audience, a bigger-ish audience. Once it got to like home media, streaming, PVOD, ancillary markets. So yeah, and I know Nicolas Cage. He has a Renfield coming out in April, which looks interesting. Him as Dracula. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is a tragic failure. It deserved better. One can definitely argue both Northman and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent both deserve better than what they got. At least the bad guys did well. That's a good movie that succeeded. So April 22nd wasn't a total loss. And then we go on to Memory. That was a minor movie. It was like Liam Neeson's latest action movie. Just like I forgot the last one. God, Blacklight. Yeah, just like it's worth ignoring. It's just bleh. Now we move on to May. Family Camp, not worth really talking about. Had no chance. Firestarter. Let's talk about that really quickly. Ooh, this movie. Okay, so this had many things going against it. One, this movie was literally announced 3 months before its release. Like in February, it was announced, and then they're like, "Hey, this coming out in May on Peacock in theaters too. And it's just like, why would you do that? Like most movies would announce their existence like years in advance, like months in advance. That's kind of weird. And that doesn't exactly scream confidence, if you ask me. And then the Peacock simultaneous release. Like Universal was really the only studio that was really still doing that. Like Warner Brothers stopped with the HBO Max experiment, Disney stopped with the Disney Plus Premier Access thing, and Paramount Plus stopped with releasing their movies day and date. Universal was still doing it for some godforsaken reason. They did it with this, they did it with Marry Me, and they did it with Honk for Jesus, and none of those worked out. So Halloween Ends, none of those really worked out. So I don't think we're gonna see that this year because of that. But yeah, Firestarter. Ooh. And not to mention the movie got really shit reviews, and because of that, the movie tanked. Only made like 9 million domestically, like 15 million worldwide, which for a Stephen King adaptation is abysmal. And I know Stephen King adaptations can be real up and down box office wise, but recently they've been doing quite well. I mean, we got It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2. Those did super well. So, what happened here? This didn't even do as well as Doctor Sleep, which was a bomb in itself. So, yeah, this is just embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing, but not surprising at all. So, yeah, nothing really else to say about Firestarter. It came out, it tanked and died, and no one remembered it, and that was it. So next up, okay, Down Abbey: A New Era. While this technically was a success, it made its money back, I think. Compared to the first movie, it did terrible. And I'm about to show you that exactly. Downton Abbey. So you got the first Downton Abbey in 2019. Now Downton Abbey was a show, was super popular, highly received, well received. Got a movie, so naturally, it was seen as like an event for fans, and it did super well. Opened with like 31 million, made like almost 100 million domestic, almost 200 million worldwide. Great, awesome, and that should have been the end of it. But they decided no, we haven't made enough money yet. We haven't squeezed enough dollars out of the Downton Abbey IP. We have to make another movie, and so they did. And it did a whole lot worse. It only opened like 16 million, made like less than half domestically and worldwide. So that's a yikes. Um, and it was really front loaded too, which isn't like super shocking, but just look at the look at that drop off, like 64%. Like, geez, that's weird for a movie aiming towards an older audience. But yeah, like, yeah, the big reason why this didn't do so well is because it didn't need to exist. It's exactly like Sex in the City 2. It's like you have the first Sex in the City movie do super well because that built-in like fan base that the show had, and they wanted to see like the big screen continuation of it. They saw it, that was it. And then you have the sequel, and people were far less interested. Kind of like what happens on TV, where you have like the first episode do really well, and then the second episode things kind of dip. Same thing happened here with these movies. So yeah, yeah, this wasn't exactly surprising. But while it wasn't like a failure, I definitely call it an underperformer. Definitely. Any sequel that does like way, way, way worse than the first movie is definitely an underperformer in my book. Then you got Men. It's not really worth talking about too much. Definitely one of A24's like weaker movies of the year. It just happened, and yeah, nothing really to say about that. So we're gonna move on. Bob's Burgers movie. Okay, another L here. This is another one of those kind of tragic failures, but it's an easily explainable failure. Okay, see with Bob's Burgers, like what compared to say the South Park movie or the SpongeBob movie or the Simpsons movie, what Bob's Burgers really lacked is it what's the word? It wasn't iconic. The show wasn't as iconic or well known or as, I guess special as like South Park or SpongeBob or Simpsons. All of those shows were big, big hits. Spanned many, many, many seasons. All three are still technically going on to this day, and they all capitalize on the popularity of the shows. Like South Park, the South Park movie came out 2 years after the show did. SpongeBob movie was like 5 years. Even the Simpsons movie, sure, it was like almost 20 years, but the show was still popular-ish enough for it to work. And plus, the movie was built as a big deal. This wasn't. Bob's Burgers has its fans, no doubt, but its popularity was never, ever on the same level as Simpsons. That's not even it's not even a comparison. And so this really was only going to appeal to Bob's Burgers fans, and that's it. Anyone outside the bubble, this movie was a no go. And yeah, that's what happened. Like domestically only made like almost 32 million, worldwide 34 million. That's really bad. That is really weak. I mean, sure, it went up against Top Gun Maverick. Not the greatest decision in hindsight, but yeah, I was just feeling like this movie was gonna tank because of just the whole movie, its release. Everything just felt off with its release. Like when they decided to make it and everything, it was never gonna work out. But I have heard it's pretty good, so I might give it a watch. But yeah, yeah, this wasn't exactly surprising. So, but it's a tragic failure, and those are never fun to talk about. And then we skip all the way over to June. Well, I guess there's these two movies. They're not really worth talking about. They were very minor movies, had minor releases, and they came out and didn't do much business, and that was that. Nothing really to talk about there. Da, 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 da. Oh boy. Here we go. Ho, ho, ho. Lightyear. Ooh, can't wait to talk. I'm ready to talk about this movie again. Probably the most shocking failure of the whole year, if you ask me. Because, like, this is Lightyear. This is based off Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. Toy Story is, like, the main IP of Pixar. Like, it started Pixar. Like, Toy Story was, like, a landmark movie in the industry. It was the first CGI, 3D CGI animated movie. And it led to Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4. All were big hits. 3 and 4 made $1 billion each. So you would think that a Buzz Lightyear movie would make money just because of the IP. Well, you're wrong. This movie did horrendous. It only made 118 million domestic, 218 million worldwide on a budget of like 200 million. Easily one of the biggest bombs of all time. And compared to like, you want to really emphasize like how bad this is. Pixar, where are you? We're not even going to compare this to Toy Story movies because that's pointless. We're going to compare it to other Pixar movies. It's got like the cream of the crop up here, the biggest being Incredibles 2, and then where is it? Buzz Lightyear. Lightyear is all the way down here. It made less than The Good Dinosaur. The Good Dinosaur. I never thought that would have been possible, but it happened. It was a bigger bomb than The Good Dinosaur. At least Cars 3, it didn't do great, but at least it had toy sales to save it. Lightyear had nothing. And I'm not going to count Onward because that movie was screwed because of COVID, so it's disqualified. But yeah, wow, like what the hell happened? How did this catastrophe come to be? Well, I have several reasons why this movie failed. We're gonna get to the more obvious reason later, but I guess let's go over the minor-ish stuff. The first thing was that Pixar, they've had a really rough time lately when it comes to the releases of their movies. I mean, after Onward, Onward was pulled from theaters after like 2 weeks because COVID like shut everything down, shut movie theaters down for a long time. You all remember that. Pixar movies after that were just dumped on Disney Plus. Soul, Luca, Turning Red, same thing, all dumped on Disney Plus. They didn't stand a chance. um, they just like they saw like I for Soul and Luca, I kind of understand, but Turning Red that did not need to happen, but they did it anyway, and yeah, it just made Pixar feel like second rate, made them feel like kind of worthless in a way. And I feel like that may have played a role in Lightyear's failure a bit, where people were like, maybe I should just wait until Disney Plus because they were so used to Pixar movies coming to Disney Plus. So that's one reason. Another reason is because I don't think there was too much demand for a Buzz Lightyear movie. I mean, if you were gonna make this movie, you should have made it like 20 years ago, right? Like when within like the first two Toy Story movies, like do it then. That would have made a little more sense. I mean, hell, there was a show, a Buzz Lightyear animated show back then. Like you could have made a movie then, but they decided to wait till like 2022, which is like really strange, really weird decision. And then the big one, the gay scene. Let's talk about this again. Oh my god. So there was a big controversy. I think it's more of a non-controversy, but a controversy surrounding the scene in the movie where one of the characters, they have two moms and they kiss and that's it. I haven't seen the movie, but that's pretty much how the scene was described. And people made such a big fuss about it. Like they were like so like this is awful. Kids shouldn't be watching this. Like ignoring the fact that we've been seeing like LGBT plus, stuff in kids media for like the past decade. Like none of that matters apparently. Like but people got like real up in arms about this one kiss in Lightyear. Like okay then. Like fuck Paranorman from 2012, before same-sex marriage was legalized throughout the whole U.S., had a character, a mainish character, who turned out to be gay and have a boyfriend. Okay, that was 2012. You think we would have moved on, but you'd be wrong. Dead wrong. And this is not the only time I'm going to be talking about a gay controversy in this video that also involves Disney, and I'm pretty sure you know what movie that is. But yeah, that whole gay controversy with this, that was like its main publicity up to its release, and then the movie just fell off completely. It had really poor legs too. It did horrible. It fell off like a stone, like 64%, 64%. Like Jesus, these are not legs associated with a Pixar movie or really a family movie in general. So, yeah, like yikes. Big yikes. um Nothing really else to say. It is an absolute catastrophe. I haven't seen it. I might watch it. Maybe. I heard really iffy things about it though. From not just because, or not really even because of the gay kiss scene, mainly because the movie was just kind of lackluster. But I don't know. I might give it a watch one of these days. But yeah, big old stinker here. Big old disaster. And then we move on and on. There's Mr. Malcolm's List. That was a very minor release. Who cares about that? Move on. What's next? Miss Harris Goes to Paris for its limited-ish release. It didn't do too bad, so I'm not really going to talk about that. But I'm going to talk about Paws of Fury. Let's talk about this. Ooh, this movie has a really interesting history. It was supposed to be called, I believe, Blazing Samurai, and it was supposed to be a homage to Blazing Saddles, the classic 70s comedy, from Mel Brooks about, is a movie that would definitely not be made today. at all. No chance, no shot. Because I have seen it, and I'm like, yeah, this would not. No one would even think about making a movie like this in today's modern age. See, I'm making a homage to that for like a kids movie version of that is really weird, but then the movie just kind of went to development hell for years and years and years until Paramount decided to pick it up and put like the Nickelodeon movies thing on it, and they're like, okay, we're releasing this as Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank, and that's what they did, and it did terrible. It only made like 17 million domestic, 40 million worldwide on a budget of 45 million. Like, oof. Now, I guess the main reasons it's not exactly hard to say why this movie failed. It didn't look very good. I remember seeing. Well, I didn't actually watch the trailer. It played in front of Sonic 2. I actually looked away from the screen to shield my eyes from the cringe. When the trailer was playing, like I heard like the longest, most excruciating fart joke I think I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, oh my god, what is this? Oh, and that was pain. That was a few minutes of pain I had to go through. And there's like everything surrounding it. It just felt so second rate. It felt like a B tier animated movie, and no one cared. Everyone avoided it, which they should. So good on you, society. And yeah, bombed. And that was a definitely not watching this ever. Because why would I do that to myself? And yeah, just an absolute fail. An absolute fail. Hell, I'm pretty sure its total was actually worse than Minions 2's third weekend. Gross. This third week was like 25 million. Actually, let me look. I'm pretty sure it was. Let me see. All up with like 6 million. Like, and it has got out of theaters real fast. Yeah, no, 26 million. It made more in its third weekend than Paws of Fury made total. That is sad. Really sad. And that's it. No more Paws of Fury. I am done talking about you for good. What's next? What's next? What's next? DC League of Super Pets, that's more mid. I wouldn't call it a loser. I technically called it a loser in my summer recap, but after thinking about it, I'm like, it's not that much of a loser, really. But it definitely could have made more money, but I wouldn't call it a loser. So, kind of rescinding, like, you know, if I would retroactively remove it from my summer losers video, but oh well, it's there. Vengeance was like a minor movie, so I'm not really going to talk about that. Gotta find more. Easter Sunday, I guess we can talk about this for like a minute. This movie, it had no chance. Like, first of all, you released a movie called Easter Sunday in August. What? That's like releasing a Christmas movie in March. Like, what is that? What is that scheduling? That is nonsensical scheduling. And then to make things worse, the movie just it had no hype. I mean, Joe Coy, he has fans apparently, but apparently none of them showed up to see the movie. And like had no real big marketing push. It just kind of came and went like a fart in the wind. And yeah, yeah. Nothing really else to say. It bombed, and that's a not really an interesting story. What's next? A lot of these movies aren't worth talking about. Fall, Mac and Rita, they had zero chance. There's no point in talking about them, so we're skipping those. Bodies is more of a mid movie anyway. Beast was more mid. I wouldn't call it a win or a failure. It definitely could have done better. I thought it was going to be a sleeper hit, but it just didn't happen. So, gonna skip that. We're not really gonna talk about that. Breaking was a minor release. The Invitation technically did well, even though it had like it was number one with like $6.8 million. So I'm not exactly gonna label that as a W. But what I am gonna label that as a loss is 3,000 Years of Longing. Let's talk about this. Ooh. Now, after the success of Everything Everywhere All at Once, I foolishly thought that audiences would be more willing to watch movies that are weird, unusual, non-mainstream friendly. Well, I guess audiences just pick and choose which weird movies to watch because they didn't watch this. It only made like 8 million domestic, 15 million worldwide. That is just awful. There's no excuse for that. And like I guess maybe I guess with Everything Everywhere All at Once, that was a little more interesting with like the I guess that looked more flashy, looked all slightly more audience friendly than this. And it didn't help that, it was like a late summer. Usually late summer movies don't do that well. And the movie was kind of like had a bit of a mix, like a very polarizing reaction, and no one really cared. So like for George Miller, yeah, this was he he could have made a better movie. He could have at least he has Furiosa next year, so there's that. But yeah, 3,000 Years of Longing, it did not go well at all. Though it's a movie I am interested in watching. Okay. But yeah, it's an absolute bomb. No change in that. So Idris Elba, he did not have a great August 2022, but at least he had Sonic 2 earlier in the year as Knuckles, where he was awesome as Knuckles, so at least he had that. Okay, moving on. GG&A, not going to talk about that because it barely existed. Honk for Jesus, let's talk about this. This is a little more embarrassing. This is another Peacock theatrical release. It wasn't from Universal per se, it was from Focus Features, yeah? Was it Focus? Focus Features. What's the division within Universal? So more or less the same thing. Just smaller. But yeah. This bombed horrifically. It only made like 2.5 million domestically. Like, jeez. That is horrible. There's nothing else to say. Like, it had like a really bad response from audiences, and just no one watched it. No one gave a shit, and that was it. So, moving on. Don't worry, we're like 3/4 of the way there. Let's see, Life Mark and Medieval. No, I'm not talking about either of those. I forgot to mention Brahmastra Part 1, like the winners video. That did well for a Bollywood movie, so who's that? Clerks 3, not going to really talk about that because that had a weird release. Everything here isn't really worth talking about. The Woman King is like, it's more of a mid success. It was, I consider it more mid. I wouldn't call it a failure, but I wouldn't call it a real hit. So I'm not really going to discuss that. Same goes for Don't Worry, Darling. That was also more of a mid, mid performance. The On the Come Up barely existed at all. That was a real fart in the wind right there. And the Moon Age Daydream, like whatever. What else? The Good House, minor release. Not gonna talk about that. Bros, let's talk about this. Oh boy, this is the second time in this video where I mention gayness. Sorry. So this is the first of three, the second of three. Okay, this is the non-Disney one. So, Bros came out. It was positioned as like the first mainstream gay rom-com from like a major studio. That was like the big pitch. And it came out and no one watched it at all. Only up like less than 5 million domestic, like 11 million domestic, 11 million domestic, for almost like 15 million worldwide. Terrible. Terrible. Now, why did it do so bad? A lot of people have said is because of the I blame the genre itself. I believe making this a rom-com was a mistake because rom-coms have not been relevant at the box office in years. those are just there's like that's kind of just a bygone genre. Like that genre is just kind of dead in the water theatrically. It's thriving on streaming on like Netflix and like Peacock and like all the streaming services, but theatrically it's dead. So the genre did this movie no favors. I feel like, and even like some would argue like the gayness negatively affected, but I mean look at Love, Simon. That was about like a gay dude, a gay teen. That wasn't exactly secretive about the gayness, and people still watched it. Like it made money. It wasn't like a huge hit or anything, but it made a nice bit of money. So it's possible for movies like these to do well. You just gotta make the right type of movie, and this was not the right type of movie. It didn't help that Billy Eichner, the guy behind it, or the main star of it, like he did not react very well to its failure. He liked to blame. He basically blamed straight people for its failure, and like it was embarrassing. He made himself look really bad, and yeah, it kind of ruined the movie's reputation. So yeah, uh, not much else to say here about Bros, but it's maybe next time, maybe if they try a little harder and they choose like a better genre, you could make this work, but this did not work. So yeah, yeah. And so that's it for September. We're in October with the final um quarter, the final stretch. Amsterdam, my god. Amsterdam. Wow. This was a train wreck. And it's kind of crazy because I mean, like, look at this cast. Look at this list of names. It's stellar. I mean, Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Chris Rock, Anna Taylor Joy, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Michael Shannon, Timothy Oliphant, Taylor Swift, Remy Malek, Robert De Niro, from the director like David O. Russell, dude who made American Hustle and Silver Linings Playbook. You just think that's so much talent. How could this fail? And then it failed hard. Made like almost 15 million domestic, 29 million worldwide on a budget of $80 million. Goddamn. So what went wrong here? Well, this was obviously positioned as like an Oscar movie, like an awards movie, judging by like the cast and like the setting of the movie and like the director and everything, all that pedigree. And the reviews were just dead in the water. It killed any chance of awards nominations, and it kind of just killed any real hype the movie had. And yeah, and like the movie wasn't exactly popular with audiences either, and it just opened with like $6 million, 6 million, and then it was gone, out of theaters, just goodbye. And I guess this is the I thought. I mean, sometimes with like large like ensemble movies like this, like say with Knives Out or Dune, I thought sure not everyone here is going to be a draw, but if you add them all together, it's an appealing package. I mean, it worked for Knives Out and it worked for Dune. It did not work here at all, and it kind of helped like the genre itself like was just kind of audiences become like pretty uninterested in it, and it's just yeah, this movie was a complete just train wreck in every sense of the word. So yeah, absolute a big old bomb there. Uh, all right, I mentioned Halloween Ends. That's more of a mid release because although it made money, it really did underperform. Just gonna show you really fast what I mean by that. 40 million opening weekend. Not good, but not terrible. 80% dip, and then it just went down from there. And like even its opening weekend, like over half of its opening weekend came from Friday. That's never a good sign. And the whole series just ended on a low note, which again, like I said in part one, They should have ended this with Halloween 2018. That should have been the end of the series. They never should have went ahead with kills or ends. Making those movies was a terrible decision, and now Halloween just kind of ended with like a wet fart. It's just, and it's kind of sad, but it's not a failure. I would not call it a failure. Black Adam. Okay. Ooh, so like Morbius, this was positioned as a movie that was like way like that was supposed to be like a big deal. They literally like proclaimed it to be like, what was it, like the next step, the next phase, the next evolution for like the DC brand or something. Like they really pushing this so hard because I mean you got The Rock, who's one of the most popular actors of all time, right? Like the dude can, his name, he's a big old, you know, he himself is a brand, and yeah, like they pushed this movie, they pushed and pushed and pushed, and they tried so hard to make this a blockbuster, and it just didn't really happen. And I mean, technically, its numbers aren't like the worst in the world. I mean, it opened with like $67 million, which was the biggest since like Summer, and made like 168 million domestic, like almost 400 million worldwide. That wouldn't be so bad if the movie didn't cost $200 million. That 200 million price tag was weighing this movie down something fierce. This movie needed to make at least $600 million to really make a profit, and that did not happen. In fact, since we're talking about Black Adam, a Shazam, which is Black Adam's the spinoff to that, because Black Adam is Shazam's arch nemesis. It barely did better than Shazam. That made like 363 million. Thing is, Shazam only cost $85 million, so it looks a whole lot better. And plus, it's getting a sequel. You know what's not getting a sequel? Black Adam. Like they announced a sequel, and they announced like future plans and shit. The post-credit scene is probably going to go down as one of the more infamous in history, because it showed like Henry Cavill returning as Superman. Everyone was so hyped, including me. Everyone was like, yes, awesome. Henry Cavill, like one of the only good things in these new recent DC movies. Yes, he's back. And he might be going up against Black Adam. And literally 2 months later, they announce Henry Cavill's no longer Superman. And I just look at Black Adam now. I'm just like, what's the fucking point? What's the point of this movie anymore? This movie's worthless now. It means nothing. That post-credit scene means nothing. And yeah, Black Adam 2 was killed too. And apparently there have been like really conflicting reports regarding the profitability, or like the more, I guess, the profitability or lack of profitability regarding this movie. Some have said the movie's a total flop. Others said no, that's not true. Although those reports, I think it was like a Deadline made a report of like, or The Rock may have fudged some numbers in that report. I don't know. It's confusing, but this movie should have done way better than it did. Absolutely. Like this movie needed to make way more money to be a real hit, and I don't see it as a real hit. I didn't really see it as a real hit opening weekend. People were proclaiming like, "Look how strong these numbers are." And I'm like, "Are we looking at the same numbers?" I don't think so. So, yeah, Black Adam, I am labeling it as a loser. Some of you are going to disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm labeling it as a loser because this is my video on my channel. This is my opinion. Okay? And we're going to move on from Black Adam. And I saw the movie. It was okay. It was really mid. It was just like another superhero movie, except with more murder. That's pretty much it. Um, yeah, and then like you got all these movies, none of them are really worth talking about. They were all kind of minor releases. They not really worth discussing. Same goes for all these movies here, Armageddon Time and the Banshees of Inisherin. A lot of these are just busted Oscar bait, so I'm not gonna go in too much detail unless the movie was like a real fail, a real catastrophe. Then we move on. We skip. Okay. She said, oof. Oh, this was another Oscar bait fail. About mainly about like the Me Too movement. And I guess this is a good example of like stuff like this just does not sell movie tickets at all. And it certainly didn't. It only made like $5 million domestically, 12 million worldwide. Oof, bad. No positives here. So I wasn't exactly shocked to see this fail. At least when it was coming out. Although I did foolishly believe this would do better than the menu, and I realized how wrong I was. I understand how wrong I was. But yeah, she said just it came out and it died, and that was it. Moving on to Thanksgiving bad weekend for movies. Well, except for Glass Onion. That did alright. But the rest, oh boy. Not gonna talk. Well, I mean, Bones and All, it's not really worth discussing. It was never gonna do well, really. Like, a movie about cannibalistic lovers, do you expect that to make money? I don't. So, yeah, its failure didn't surprise me. Devotion is a little more serious. Um, I thought this would had the potential to be a sleeper, but no one cared. It only made like 5.9 million, made like 20 million domestic. That's really pitiful for a movie like this. I don't have like a clear answer as to why it did so bad. I guess it's just disinterest, just general disinterest. I guess that would be my main reason. But yeah, no one watched it, and that was that. Uh, Fablemans. I guess I could talk about this too. This did really poor for a Steven Spielberg movie. I mean, Steven Spielberg is one of the most iconic directors of all time, but no one gave a damn about his passion project here because it was only made like 14 million so far, which is just pitiful for Spielberg standards. And it's not out of theaters yet, but I imagine it will be out of theaters soon. Once award season is over, it'll definitely be out. And yeah, making 20 million worldwide, ugh, not good at all. Just really bad. But we haven't even gotten to the worst performer, which was technically the best performer of the weekend, which is saying nothing. Strange World. I did not expect a movie to do worse than Lightyear. I really did. I didn't expect a movie to bomb harder than Lightyear, but it happened. It was also from Disney, not Pixar, but Disney. Well, Pixar's within Disney, but it's Disney twice. They've had two big animated bombs, but this did way worse than the last. Way, way, way worse. Because at least the last movie, its box office was over its budget. Slightly, but still over its budget. Here, its box office was half its budget. Only made like 68 million worldwide on a budget of $135 million. That is just I can't even put it into words. That is one of the biggest bombs of all time. This is one of the biggest bombs of all time easily. But why did it do so bad? Going back, so for the third time, we're talking about gayness. So round 3. So like Lightyear, there's a big controversy surrounding a gay character. And people were like, "Oh my god, a gay character in a kids movie? Disgusting!" And there's just a whole big, just mess surrounding it, and it's just, it's so tiring. It's the most tiring thing ever. But I don't. A lot of people like to label that as the main reason why it failed. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's the main reason. I think the main reason is I think I've heard this theory that Disney sabotaged this movie from the get go, and I believe that theory because like from day one, the marketing was piss poor. Like the trailers, they gave you no reason to watch the movie. they gave like no exciting scenes, no like real just interesting stuff. Like they were kind of poorly edited too. It was just it didn't look interesting at all. Like again, it gave me no reason to watch it in the cinema. And like the bad marketing just continued and continued and continued until it came out. And surprise, surprise, no one wanted to watch it. So it did make me think that maybe this movie was sabotaged because with Bob Chapek when he was like the CEO of Disney during his time, it felt like he really didn't give a damn about animation. That's the vibe I got from him. I mean, how he treated Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, just dumping them on the Disney Plus like it's nothing. And then like the lackluster marketing for this, it's just it put a bad taste in my mouth, honestly. Like it's kind of like what happened with like HBO Max, where like David Zaloff, like a lot of people, I assume like he doesn't give a damn about animation either, and the fact that he canceled so many animated shows that people liked and just yeeted them from the service, and now they're in the Digiverse, makes me think, yeah, this dude hates animation. And then I'm not even gonna talk about Velma. I don't want to. That show's been talked about way too much already. I don't need to add on to that. But enough about HBO Max and Velma and all that shit. Talk about Strange World. Ugh, like it just everything went wrong here. And like you think with this being a Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving is Disney's weekend. They made it their weekend for a long time. They released big movies like there's so many. At least the last decade, like since 2010, like Tangled, Frozen, Moana, Frozen 2. Well, that was like a weekend before Thanksgiving. Still, um, you think they really put in some effort, but they just didn't want to do that, and they let the movie die. And yeah, and that was it for Strange World. You think that would be like the last big bomb of the year, but you're wrong. You're dead wrong. We have like two more to talk about. Two major ones to talk about. Skipping through December, blah blah blah. These two movies, spoiler, that was a minor release. I'm not really talking about that. Avatar 2, The Whale did fine. Puss in Boots was a winner. These two, the last two wide releases of 2022, both just ended the year on a real low note. So we're going to talk about the more severe one, Babylon. Oh, so this is from Damien Chazelle, the man behind Whiplash, a movie I love. La La Land, a movie I don't like very much. And First Man, a movie I haven't seen. And with this, I wasn't expecting much out of it. I was actually kind of confused on how it would do because it didn't feel like a super mainstreamy type movie. It didn't feel like it was going to get a wide audience or a big audience anyway, because just like the runtime and the genre, this is like a 3 hour plus movie about like old Hollywood. Like, who really cares about that too much? And yeah, like I didn't expect it to do well, but it did way worse than I ever thought. It has only made 14 million domestically, and at this point, it's out of theaters. It sure hasn't opened overseas yet, but it's not going to matter anymore. The movie, it's DOA. It's been DOA since the day it opened. So what went wrong? I think that the content of the movie was like definitely not appealing to most audiences. I've heard things about this movie, and I've heard there's a lot of shit in the movie, and I by shit I mean literal shit, like you know, and I'm like, damn, people don't want to watch a movie that has this stuff. That's crazy. It's not even like Wolf of Wall Street. Like at least Wolf of Wall Street with its content, like all of its like extreme content, it made you like interested. It made you like curious. This did not make you curious. It just made people turn away. And yeah, like because of that, and also because like the only movie people were really wanted to watch that holiday was the past holiday was Avatar 2, then eventually Puss in Boots 2. Everything else just forget about it. And yeah, Babylon just died because of that. And because of this and Amsterdam, Margot Robbie's now been labeled as box office poison. I don't know about that. I think she just made bad movie choices because I don't really blame her for these movies' failures. We'll see how the Barbie movie does this year. That'll really be a test to her these claims of box office poison. But yeah, I didn't think this movie was going to do well anyway. But it just did horrendous. So, but I am kind of interested. Like the content of the movie maybe has made me really curious to watch it. That dreaded, um, like the worst type of curiosity, the type where it's like almost like a car accident where you don't want to watch it, but you're just like, I kind of need to watch it. I kind of want to experience this. So maybe I will watch it when it hits Paramount Plus. But yeah, I'm not shocked that this movie bombed as hard as it did. And then last and certainly not least, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. I was I don't know if I was expecting a huge hit out of this, but I was thinking it should do at least fine. I mean, this is Whitney Houston. She's an icon in music. Like I thought I wasn't expecting like Bohemian Rhapsody numbers or even like Straight Outta Compton numbers or Walk the Line numbers, even Elvis numbers. I was thinking this movie would at least find some audience, and that audience never materialized. Opened with like less than 5 million domestic, like 22 million domestically. It's pretty much done at this point, as far as I know. Let me see. Yeah, it's pretty much done. It's not going to go much further. But so why did this fail? I think just disinterest in general. Like I don't think the hype was really there in the first place. Like the hype was there when it came to Strata Compton and Bohemian Rhapsody. Hype was not there with this, and it's gonna end up doing about as well as the Respect movie from 2021, which was about Aretha Franklin. And I didn't expect. I thought this would do way better because of the Christmas release and everything, but everything was working against it. Lack of audience interest, Avatar 2, winter storms, everything. It was doomed to fail all pretty much. I'm going to mention this one last time. I mentioned this in several videos. I'm going to mention it again. I don't understand why they changed the title. It was originally called I Want to Dance with Somebody. That would have been just fine. It would have fit right in with other musical biopics like Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, Straight Outta Compton, Walk the Line, Respect. Would have fit right in. But no, they just had to tack on Whitney Houston's name like we were all stupid. That will forever annoy me. But yeah, the movie bombed. No one cared. And that was it. And that's it for 2022. We're done. We are done. I'm not making a third part with mid movies. I don't want to. So yeah. That's it. So yeah, make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out more videos like this? I got playlists on our homepage, all previous recap videos I've done on the channel. If you want to watch my 2020, my part one of my 2022 recap, you can go right ahead. If you want to watch any other recap videos I've done on the channel, go right ahead. There's also, shoot, box office predict, no, canceled series. There we go. The canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I just did a cancel episode hours before this, me recording this. Episode 171, mainly about Meg Mathregan 2.0, getting a date, and some other movies. So if you want to watch that, any other cancel episodes, go right ahead. Binge them all from beginning to now. I highly encourage it. Go do it. And there's also box office predictions where I predict box office for movies. Every movie I really covered in this video, I did prediction videos on from last year. So you want to watch any of those videos or any other prediction videos I made on the channel, go right ahead. And that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.